Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad. This is my channel Animate Orange. I apologize for coming to you late this week. I literally lost track of what day it was. Things have been busy. But anyway, this week in 3D metal model news. Unlike usual, we are not going to start with Fascinations. We've already talked about the Mandalorian models. There's nothing new. We're going to start this week with Piececool, as they have several different things announced if you don't know about it already. A couple of the things, keeping with the themes that they've been going with a lot lately, we have what appears to be a couple more models in the Datang Street collection. We have an ancient theatrical stage model, which looks to be a fairly elaborate model. Pretty neat looking. Just to give you some of the specs of it, or the specs that I have, it's going to be 3 1/2 sheets, 174 parts. According to what I'm reading here, it's going to be, the metal is brass. And the finish size is 14.8 by 7.5 by 12.6 centimeters, 3 out of 7 stars. And again, it appears to be part of the Datang Street collection that we've already gotten some stuff for. We're getting this in one of the model and possibly even more. The other model is the Ancient Academy. This one's going to be 4 1/8 sheets, 258 pieces. I think it's also listed as brass. Finish size of 14 by 9.6 by 12.6 centimeters, 3 out of 7 stars. And again, part of the Datang collection. We've already got several models from them already. It's been a while since I've talked about them, but they even have a picture in here that kind of shows these two models and 2 or 3 more sort of shaded out mystery models to come. So they're not done with this street collection yet. It's more of the Chinese history or Chinese culture or Chinese models that have been coming out a lot lately, not just from Piececool, but from MU and others as well. Pretty neat looking architecture, however. On top of that, the other kind of big thing that's popped up, was announced at the same time, is some more Marvel models. We had the Hulkbuster that's come out, which is still a little challenging to get. I only know of one place to get it on Aliexpress, so the Hulkbuster is kind of hard to find. I'm hoping these won't be the same way, but perhaps. Time will tell. Again, the Piececool models that I'm talking about are announced on their page, but they're not up for sale yet. Coming fairly soon, though, is the idea. The Marvel models that we have are Iron Man, which is 3 1/8 sheets, 112 pieces. I think brass. It's listed as brass. Finish size of 13 by 7.2 by 19.5 centimeters tall. That last number is always the height. 6 out of 7 stars. And honestly, the arms are a bit thick looking. Kind of interesting. We'll come back around to that. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about what other 2 models there are. We have the Thor model, which is 4 sheets, 86 pieces, stainless steel this time, 17.1 by 16.9 by 19 centimeters tall, 4 out of 7 stars. And this one has kind of weird looking legs, and these models actually have faces. I didn't really say anything about the Iron Man because it's the helmet, but it appears that Thor and Captain America, which is next, actually have printed on faces on the models. And I think we recently had a kind of topic of the week where somebody talked about the faces of the models, and I don't think anyone's done it quite like this before. Next one is Captain America. It is 3 1/8 sheets, 11 pieces, which that almost can't be right. I think I made a typo there. Stainless, 14.6 by 12.1 by 18.2 centimeters. Finish size, 4 out of 7 star difficulty. So these don't appear to be very difficult. Guessing around the difficulty of Deadpool, which I'm working on right now, which is seemingly pretty easy compared to what I've just finished. But much like the other 2, the legs and arms are kind of weirdly proportioned, like they're thick and thin in areas you don't expect. And I think when I first saw that, I think it reminded me of one of the Star Wars animations that I've seen, where the character's a little oddly proportioned because of the 3D rendering. And I think somebody mentioned they're more based off of the comics, which makes sense. The comic stuff isn't drawn to real life all the time. It has odd dimensions, and it does look like these models are based off maybe a comic drawing or 3D animation drawing and not so much a realistic, which is fine. It makes them look really weird if you're expecting a realistic adaptation, but I don't think that's the direction they've gone here. It's something that can grow on you, or it's also something that could go really odd and not be liked like the Legends models. I don't know. It's interesting that Piececool is doing more of these Marvel models, and it's Piececool doing it, not the US. Who knows if this will come over to Metal Earth so that it's available like in the US and other areas. I've not heard any word about that, but that's not to count out the possibility. But yeah, very interesting that Piececool is going forward with more Marvel models, but how difficult are they going to be able to get outside of China? That remains to be seen. Of course, there's links to the Piececool site, honestly just piececool.com, and you can go check out more information and more pictures on these models for yourself. I do also want to add that CodeWookie got a post up quite a bit before me putting this in this video, and in his post on MetalEarthBuilder.com, he got several of the pictures, but he also did like a mock-up comparison of the Hulkbuster compared to the size of these newly announced models, about what the size difference is going to be. If you want to go check that out, I'll also put a link down below to Metal Earth Builder's website, to that particular post if I can. And again, there's nothing new announced from Metal Earth. I've also looked on MU's site, didn't see anything new there. So of course I began browsing around Aliexpress looking for stuff, because you know there are other brands out there that don't like to announce on their websites what's coming out. And what I did find is a new model from Microworld. It's a Dragon Palace model kit. Very interesting looking. I kind of like the dragon theme behind it. I don't have much information except that one of the posts did have a little bit of a paragraph about it. Just a snippet from that. The Dragon Palace is the submarine palace where the sea dragon kin of the Middle East lives in ancient Chinese myths, also known as the Crystal Palace. And I'm sure someone will chime in here, possibly Garthube, with more information on that. I didn't have a chance to run this by anybody before posting, but some details on the model. According to what I've seen, it's brass. It's a finish size of 18.2 by 20 by 17.2. Didn't say centimeters or millimeters, but I'm guessing those are centimeters. Not real sure, but I'm thinking centimeters. 6 sheets, 178 pieces, 8 out of 10 stars, and it looks like it comes with an acrylic stand to put it on. I did find it in several different stores, and I'll put links to those different stores down below depending on which ones you like. You know, you might be able to follow the link that you want to. I'm not going to recommend one store over the other. I've dealt with some I haven't dealt with, but I wanted to give options of several different links. And it's about $43 US, give or take, depending on the store you get it from. But it seemed like most everybody was fairly consistent in that price range. Didn't look into shipping. Another unexpected model that I found, also a dragon, is a red dragon ship. I only found it in a couple of different AliExpress stores. This one's from Picture Kingdom. So we have a Microworld Dragon Palace and a Picture Kingdom red dragon ship. I'm actually kind of loving the red dragon ship, and that's one of the ones I'd like to add to my collection. The Picture Kingdom, their models can be good and their models can be But anyway, red dragon ship, finished size of 175 times 98 by 79. And this one also didn't say whether it's millimeters or centimeters. I'm kind of guessing that's millimeters, because 175 centimeters is that's big. But 6 sheets, 7 stars. It's about $59 US, the 2 different places I've seen it. Originally found on the Metalhead store, so it's labeled as a Metalhead model, but kind of annoys me how they do that. They'll label everything Metalhead when it's Piececool or it's Microworld, or in this case Picture Kingdom. They just throw their name on it. You have to kind of dig through to find out really who makes that. And I did also see on the Metalhead store those 2 MU floats. So they have it labeled as MU Phoenix floats, but it's like it's a couple of different ones. Sorry, I had to check my notes. The names get confusing. It's the MU Zoo Hazai and the Peacock Loot Float, is I believe what they were called on the MU site. Whereas on this site, they're just kind of lumping them together into one listing and calling it a Phoenix Float. But yeah, I saw those for sale on this. The only store that I saw it for sale was on the Metalhead store site. So again, links in the description down below if you're wanting to find that for yourself. And that's pretty much all I saw as far as new models on Aliexpress, bringing us to a close as far as new models are concerned. Next up, I do want to go back, I want to go back to the topic from last week. I'd mentioned, does anybody out there ever make models as gifts? Have come up on the holiday season, and I just was kind of a question I was wondering about. No particular reason. Got quite a few responses, so I'm going to read some of the responses that I did get. Not just some of them. I'm going to read the responses I did get. Starting with Stephen Shoemaker, kind of a long response. I made the Piececool rows and shoes for different people at work and put them in plastic cases to keep on their desk at work. Before the pandemic, they were still on the desk. I also made the Cinderella castle for a co-worker's friend when I heard she got one at Disney and broke it trying to put it together. That's very nice. I also made the TARDIS and Snitch for two different teachers' friends for their personal school desk where the kids won't touch. I kind of like the ratings I heard for Mando. With the popularity of the show, an inexperienced person may buy them and it be his or her first model, so it's good to estimate those as high. Let's face it, experienced people can look at the model and can tell if they can do it at this point. The ratings are for newer people. For the most part, I absolutely agree with you. The ratings are going to be helpful. I know, and I think there's a comment later I'm going to read that comes into play and talks about this. You know, like on Amazon, there's a lot of negative ratings on these Metal Earth models because people buy them and they're a lot more difficult than they expect. And they get mad and they leave a negative review. And honestly, Metal Earth is a little bit to blame for that, because in the beginning they were saying all you need is a pair of tweezers, which is a little misleading. Can you put some of the models together with nothing but tweezers? Yeah. I'd recommend more than that. I'd recommend maybe a couple of different tweezers, some clippers, a few other tools would help. I mean, you don't have to spend a fortune, but there are some basics that you really should have to make a decent model. And that hurts. If you see something, and I remember debating the first time I bought one of these models, the Millennium Falcon. It said, you know, I remember it saying all you need is a pair of tweezers, no soldering required. And I'm like, there's got to be more to it than that. It can't be that simple. And I ended up using a couple of different tweezers and cobbled it together, but I could have done so much better if I had more tools. But I don't think they have that on their packages like they used to, so that's gotten a little bit better. But yeah, the ratings certainly do help to kind of warn people a little bit. Hey, this model you're going to get, not going to be the easiest thing to put together. There's going to be some challenge to it. For the most part, those of us that have been doing these models for a while can typically look at a model and go, oh, this is going to be about this difficult. That being said, I can't tell you how many times after doing these models for several years, having nearly 300 under my belt, 300 unique models under my belt, there are times where I look at a model and think, yeah, this is going to be a little challenging, but not that bad. And it ends up being more difficult than I thought. Or, in like the case of Deadpool, I'm looking at Deadpool and I'm thinking this is going to be hard. And I blasted through the bottom half in seemingly no time. Much easier than I thought. So can you get an idea? Certainly. But it can still be a little bit off, in my opinion. No insult intended, though. You're all right. The ratings definitely do help. Now, Mary Pate comments, I've made tons of stuff for my parents, but they're my parents, so of course they were happy to receive. I've done bunches of stuff for my husband too. The first few he was excited for, but now he's issued a no more notice. I also dabble in diamond painting. I gave my colleagues each a diamond painting bookmark and they seemed pretty happy. That's pretty cool. I don't want to touch too much on this now because I was kind of saving to the end to talk about what I've made, but I've made models for my girlfriend and she has done the diamond paintings, though she doesn't have the time to sit down and do them much at all. She's traveling a lot right now. But anyway, That's pretty neat. Thanks for sharing, Mary. Fox. Jacob comments, I've made Dragon for my friends and the Millennium Falcon for the same friend's wife. Both were given to them as gifts and were just sitting in their packaging collecting dust until they found out I built these models. Hopefully someone gifts them a new Star Wars model for me to build. That's pretty cool. I can't say I've heard too much about that happening, but I can see it happening where people get a model and they're never going to touch it and somebody else builds it for them. I have had the occasional person message me with a model that they didn't want to or couldn't build and asked it how much would it be for me to build it for them. In a couple instances I actually did, a few instances I've turned down, and in one or two instances I've said, it's going to cost this much for me to do it, and they're like, that's too much. Alright, I'm not going to argue with you. But anyway, thank you for sharing. Now Laura Coleman comments, I love making handmade gifts. I'm currently building the Boba Fett Emmy for my husband. He's not really into models, but collects anything Boba Fett he can get his hands on. I already built the Slave 1 last year. Next up is Boba Fett bust. I had already done the HP Snitch, so I could get some experience with bending curves. Last week I used the code for the Golden Rose. It's going to be a gift for my MIL, mother-in-law, I'm assuming. She doesn't like getting real flowers because they wilt and die, so I think she will like this. My husband did a flower and vase set on his 3D printer for her last year and she loved it. She's 85 and shows everyone who visits the little things we make her. We are the only creative people in the family, so I think she appreciates that we take our time to make the gifts instead of just buying something. When I'm not bending metal into sculptures, I knit, and I'm always knitting gifts. Mostly socks, hats, and mittens. I respect that so much. I consider myself a crafty person. I make these videos about these Metal Earth models. I've got a 3D printer. I 3D print some stuff, though it is mostly the tools that I sell on Etsy. But I've plastic canvas. I've made a plastic canvas TARDIS before. I've made plastic canvas coasters and this, that, and the other. I've sewn a little bit, done some woodworking as one year that I sat and made different knickknacks. I made like a Cthulhu clock for a friend. I cut out an outline of a Cthulhu, painted it green, put a clock piece in it. I made like a slide top knitting needle box for somebody else. I made a couple of dice towers. I respect that so much. Things that are handmade have so much more value to them. I have some knitted gloves and hat and scarf, and I have some blankets. I have this fantastic Mario blanket that a good friend of mine, took a very long time to make, that I love throwing on the bed in the cold of the winter, because there's no way I'm ever going to get cold under this thing, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. And the time that they put into this, it is an absolute treasure. I greatly appreciate that, and I appreciate family and friends who also appreciate being given handmade gifts. I'm going to come back to that once I've read the comments. John Finnegan Jr. Hi Brad, I have built 6 to 8 metal models for gifts. I've done 4 color roses, the roses in 2 picture frames. I've done the Chinese wedding dress and black pearl ship. They all loved the gifts. One girl actually went on a live stream showing off the rose and had people asking if I would build and sell it to them. Sorry for long message. Great video and keep them coming. John, that was not a very long message. That's fantastic. The people love it so much they actually did a live stream about it and you got more requests. I respect that. That's really cool. Congratulations on that. I'm not going to ask if you took them up on it and how much money you made. That's completely up to you, but I'm being a little bit funny here. That's really cool. Thanks, John, for sharing that. Not all usernames are meant to be pronounced, but I'm going to try. Melayaham01. I made the Targaryen sigil for my partner, who isn't a Game of Thrones fan. He just loves the sigil. Did I say that right? I think I said that right. The first model I ever made was a Batmobile that I had bought for him to do, but he was never going to do it, so I did it instead. Also, made ME Soundwave for my daughter, who's a Transformers nerd. I might make her the big Bumblebee one day. I like the look of that one, but it's not cheap. No, those ME models are not cheap, and they take a lot of time, but man, are they fantastic. That's really cool. I'm loving all these comments, and just loving that the people are really enjoying the handmade stuff. And again, we have somebody who had a model that was just never going to build it, so somebody built it for them. That's fantastic. I didn't expect that, but I should have. Lee Kisselberg, hey Brad, yes, I have built models for others. I built the windmill, the rickshaw, the Coliseum for coworkers, the praying mantis for my sister, and the dragonfly for my wife. And the first metal model I ever done was the Apollo CSM with lunar lander for a longtime friend who used it for teaching. Oh, very cool. Getting ready to start the Enterprise for the same friend for Christmas. Love these models. That's fantastic to make a model for a teacher or an instructor who's going to use it for classroom instruction. That is absolutely fantastic. If I'm not mistaken, Fascinations, one of the purposes behind their business was to make educational type toys, and just to have that right there is just fantastic. That is, if you have not shared that with Fascinations, you absolutely should have. I could be wrong, but I think they would love hearing about that. That is fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing. Richard Kroll comments, I made Marvin the Martian for my wife as a present. She has always been a big fan of the cartoon character and is one of the few Legends models that in my opinion works with that style. Several models I made for my collection were later gifted to friends who admired them. I think Marvin the Martian is probably my favorite. I say that and in my head I'm thinking, but I like so many. Probably my favorite Looney Tunes, and the one that's talked about a lot. And between Marvin and Yosemite Sam and the Tasmanian Devil, those are probably the three most popular ones. I knew somebody who actually had the Tasmanian Devil painted on their car. They had like a 60s Maverick that they spent 2 years restoring in private, until one day they opened up their garage door and cranked it up. And they had like a shed. I shouldn't even say garage, like a shed out in their yard that they kept disappearing into, and nobody asked questions what they were doing. And after a couple of years, the door opened, the engine cranked up, and out come this beautiful, like burgundy Maverick. And it was just a fantastic car. But anyway, they had it painted on that. Their wrecker. I'm surprised they didn't make a Tasmanian Devil. But anyway, thanks for sharing that. Michael Bernier comments, I'm planning to build the Piececool and Microworld flower vase model for Valentine's Day as a gift to my girlfriend. Hopefully she will like them. I hope so too. I certainly hope so. That sounds like a fantastic idea, and good luck to you on that. I have done something similar. I've said a couple of times I was kind of waiting to the end to talk about the stuff that I've done. I can't remember what I mentioned in the last video. For starters, for my parents, I did make at one point a guitar, a little electric guitar for my stepfather, who was a heck of a guitarist and bassist. He had a rather large collection of guitars, bass guitars, keyboards, just musical equipment. Actually, him and my mom would do, they had like a group that they would go to nursing homes and play gospel music. It was fairly well known in the area, and very sad when that just, stopped suddenly, because he passed away 2 or 3 years ago. His brother and some of the other members of the group that kind of came and went are, I think, trying to continue on, but it did stop for a while. Anyway, he was very much into guitar. He taught me how to play, gave me my first guitar, so I made him a little tiny guitar. I know he appreciated it. I'm not sure, it was all that fantastic of a gift, but at the time I didn't have much and was just trying to do something. I did make a lighthouse for my mom because she loves lighthouses, so I built that, made a video of it, and gave it to her. So I've got a video of the lighthouse, but you won't see that anywhere behind me because I gave it away. I do have the guitar because I didn't record the guitar build, so I did that a second time and recorded it, and I do have that model. But then as far as my girlfriend is concerned, I have made her 3 different models, and I had to kind of think about that for a while. I made, see, the first one I think was a silver Dalek. It was like a knockoff that I got off of Aliexpress, and I made that for her because the Metal Earth one is gold, and I wanted a different one that was obviously hers. And she loved that very much because she's watched some Doctor Who with me, but only some, and she was really, I don't know, kind of oddly fell in love with the Dalek, little ball of hate. She also loved BB-8, and I made the BB-8 for her, the Metal Earth version, this is a plain silver one. And then later on picked up Stitch, which one of those I think I did give as a Valentine's gift. But I also made Stitch as well. I made a video for that and gave it to her. And then the My Little Pony collection, I got a hold of all those, and I went ahead and did the videos sometime before they were discontinued, and part of me definitely wanted to keep those because I made those models, but I gave them to my daughter, so they're all in her room. You know, you got to be real careful with these because they'll break easy, and as far as I know, they're still okay. The last time we moved, she actually came to me with them and was like, "Can you please pack these up? I don't want to break them." And so I did, and they made it here safely. So there, I do have a few things that I've given to family. And I did make an extra Eiffel Tower and something else and give it to a friend. Supposed to make a Ford Mustang for that friend, but that never materialized. It just, you know, they were like, "Oh, it's really cool. I like Mustang. I like Fords, and my grandfather used to work for Ford, and I'd really love for you to make me one, and I'll buy it. And if will you build it for me?" They never did. They never bought it, and it just kind of went under the table, and they've never said anything about it. But maybe someday. I so appreciate people who love handmade gifts, and I appreciate handmade gifts, and really the responses that I got to that question are fantastic. Thank you everybody for sharing. That was a fun read and just uplifting to be able to read all those, and that other people are doing that too, and some of the responses. That was really cool. Thank you everybody for sharing and commenting on that last question. I do have a couple of other comments not related to that I do want to read. We have one from Neil Wilson. Neil says, "Just doing my second model, T-34 tank. I'd just like to thank you for your hints in these videos. My Sherman wasn't too bad. I broke one of the multiple bends parts in the running gear. I followed your advice and got some new tools which made it much easier. A lot of reviewers on Amazon give these models a poor score, but if they just watched one of your videos, they would know that these models take some care to build." And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier and why it was on my mind, how a lot of Metal Earth models get bad reviews on Amazon because they are a challenge. Your first one is going to be a challenge, and there's a high chance you're going to break something because it's your first time dealing with this. But if you have some guidance, you can certainly do a lot better. But kind of be expected to break that first one or have some trouble with it because this is your first time. There is like a leap of a learning curve to it, I guess you could say, or a leap of what you expect versus what you get. And it's interesting, part of what started this channel, I did the Millennium Falcon, and it wasn't too bad, but it was different than I expected, and I pulled it off, and I made a bad little video. It was my first time. It was still very early. I'm not going to say it's my first time making a YouTube video. I was doing another channel at the time, but none of the videos were that good. And then the next thing I got, because I was mostly interested in the ships, was Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, and that went wrong quick. And I broke it, and I was so frustrated. And I did not look at any kind of reviews before doing the models, but afterwards I did look at Amazon reviews, and a lot of it was negative because people had the same problem I did. But there was one or two people that said, "Hey, what you got to do is you don't follow the directions exactly. This is what you have to do. Put the guns on first. Don't wrap it all the way around. Shape it as you go. Just kind of approach it a little bit differently and be careful, and you can definitely do this model." So I took a second try at it using that advice, and I'm like, I'm going to have to include this in my review video. This is the direction that I need to go, is to go ahead and do these models and think outside the box. And I'm a goof. I constantly, if you watch my videos, I'm constantly missing a step and doing something backwards or forgetting something. That's who I am. And to be able to make these mistakes and go, "Oh, shouldn't have done that," I try to use that as a strength in my videos of, if I'm going to make this mistake, other people are going to possibly do it too. So I'm going to try and warn them against it so that they can have a better outcome. And that's just how a lot of how all of this started. And it's interesting that that was brought up. The Amazon reviews were not very good on these models because there is a kind of a learning curve to it. But yeah, something to talk about there. The last comment I want to read is from GarTube. GarTube has been so helpful in understanding these Chinese and Oriental models. He chimed in. Sometimes I'm actually able to ask GarTube about the models ahead of making the video, and sometimes I'm not. But GarTube comments on last week's video. The sale that they have on Ali stores, etc., is a singles sale. This is the 11/11 sale I talked about last week. The opposite of Valentine's Day, done to encourage you to buy yourself something nice. It lasts till the 11th of November. Those Microworld models have been following the theme of small, chubby models around machines. And there were 2 or 3 Microworld kind of chunky models I talked about. And I have kind of noticed that, by the way. They also have the boat, the helicopter, and plane, if I'm not mistaken. And those are ones that I've talked about before. I just got the Frankenstein and Candy House models arrived, and they look great. Well, late but mint condition. I pre-ordered the Star Wars models and had release dates of 11th December stated from memory. Great video, Brad. I appreciate the hard work you do for the growing community. And thank you, GarTube, for your comments on helping understanding a lot of the Chinese and Oriental related stuff. It is appreciated and an interesting insight. I had no idea that was a single sale. Thanks for clarifying that. And there's some models in this week's video you'll probably have some insight on too. And if you get around to making a comment, I know I'll appreciate it. Thank you very much for your comments, GarTube, and everyone else. Of course, that leads to this week's topic. And it is somewhat related. It's been on my mind. We are, as I've stated before, getting towards the end of the year, towards the holidays, towards the gift-giving season. And one thing that I've definitely noticed in the several years that I've been doing this video channel, this YouTube channel, is that close to Christmas and between Christmas and maybe halfway through January, I have like a boost in views. And I figured that's because you got people getting these models as gifts and they're looking on YouTube. How do I do this? What's going on? Can I get some insight? And they find my videos. And after 6, 7, 8 years, my videos tend to come up more than a lot of others. And so I get a rise in viewership. I get a rise in comments. And one of the things I did this last holiday season is I tried to make some quick little tips videos, because I've done tips and tricks videos and they get buried after a while and they get a little outdated. And so I tried to do a few videos for people that were new to the channel, who are new to making these models, new to subscribing, to kind of give them some basics of what to expect with these models, what to look for, tools, so on and so forth. And I think that did fairly well. And I'm trying to forward think to this year, what can I do to help the likely newcomers to this hobby, because it's going to happen again. Some of these people may just be people that haven't gotten a model in a while, or getting a model they've not done before and hoping I can help. And some of these people are probably never built one of these models before and can use the boost. So this week's question, for those of you who have been building these models, what is something that you wish somebody told you, or some advice you would like to give to somebody who's just coming into this hobby, into building these models? What is it you wish you knew? What is it you would like to tell somebody else? Just help people. That's the idea here. I want to take your advice and your comments and try to make another, like, end of the year, holiday season, welcome to this hobby. This is advice from people, not just from me, but from people who have been doing these models for years, people that may be doing this model for a year now. They got presents last year, got models for presents last year, and these are the things they wish they knew. These are the things they want you to know. Leave your comments down below. I would greatly appreciate it, and very much like to put them together, not just read them next week, but possibly, if it's okay with you, put them together in a video for later this year for the holiday season to help those people out. I think it'll be a fantastic topic. I think the comments that I'm going to get will be very interesting. I greatly appreciate them. Leave them down below. I look forward to reading them. And, you know, if you're, please let me know whether or not you're okay with me sharing them and even your name in a video for the newcomers this holiday season. And it is the beginning of a new month, so I do want to thank this month's Patreon supporters for continuing to support this channel, for helping to pay the behind-the-scenes bills, and also giving me a fund to pull from to buy models for these videos. Thank you to Chris Paskowich, George Bell, Giovanni Filardo, Hugh Morrison, Jay, James Herring, James Stalker, Kaj Nielsen, Kamal McCoon, Ken Crowan, Kendall Fargo, Laurent Palm, Mon Hung, Phil Miller, Seth Bell, Shalon Modi, Timothy Green, and Timothy Vogel. Thank you very much for your continued support. It is appreciated. Thank you to everyone who has commented on these videos. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, there's always a link in the description down below and at the very end of this video where you can go and support. It's up to you. I'm always going to make these videos whenever I have the times and funds to do so. And just if you're willing to support, that's fantastic. It is appreciated. If not, there's other ways to support. There's still links in the description to where you can follow a link to go to Play Toys to buy models. And I get basically a referral bonus a little bit for what you spend there, and that helps the channel as well. And there's other ways to support. I mean, your comment support as well. They give me something to talk about, so I greatly appreciate it. Thank you everyone for watching. Apologize for being so slow as of late. Good news, I've got Deadpool halfway done. I'm going to try and work on that some more tonight and keep the build videos coming. That's definitely slowed down due to so many reasons, but I am still working on it. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, and as always, keep on keeping on.